it goes. Before I forget, I'd like to thank Fred and Lee from Columbia High School, two very nice seniors, for taping this program. And it will be on Channel 35 on Wednesday, September 28th. So if any of you have access to cable, it'll be nice to see the program again. And these boys are really, they deserve a nice applause around the Okay. Before I begin, I just wanted to tell you, we're very happy to have an old friend of mine, Joel Jacobson. When he sent me his resume, well, you'll see, I'm going to have him tell you all about it. But it's very impressive. He was United States District Court appointed trustee for Teamsters Local 560, Commissioner of New Jersey Casino Control Commission, Commissioner of New Jersey Department of Energy, Commissioner and President of New Jersey Public Utilities Commission, Director of Community Relations for United Auto Workers, Region 9. I'm just mentioning it. I'll ask him to tell us more, but I didn't want him to forget about his past. It's funny, when I made out my program early in the summer, last week we had Joe Clark. I didn't expect the very next day he would be on television and in the news. Well, when I asked Joel to speak on Atlantic City in August, I didn't expect on September 11th the same title 10 years later in the Star Ledger. They copied us, I promise you. The agendas were made. 10 years later, Atlantic City still struggling despite casinos. I think it's a very worthwhile topic because we were promised a lot when Atlantic City came in. And I think that we have the right person to tell us what we got for what we voted in. So without further ado, please let's give a warm round of applause to Joel Jacobson.
Thank you very much. Do I have to use this thing?
No. That's it. Come on.
Your voice is strong enough.
I have an idea you can hear me.
Yes.
Thank you. First thing I'd like to do is express my appreciation to Phyllis for the invitation. And secondly, for the opportunity to rub elbows with some of my South Orange neighbors. This is my home library, and I'm generally here looking for books, and it's nice to be able to come to this meeting room and see all of you, some of whom I see upstairs from time to time. I want to tell you a story about a place that could really be called a tale of two cities. And as Charles Dickens wrote, this is the best of times, this is the worst of times. In effect, this applies to Atlantic City today. And perhaps to portray to you what has happened in the last 10 years, and Phyllis is right, that was our title before the Ledger picked it up. I'd like to tell you a personal story of my relationship to Atlantic City. In 1976, I was the president of the New Jersey Public Utility Commission. And I had a staff of about 150 people. And as most offices are run, everybody is busy every day doing that job. And you rarely have time to think of the broader picture. And I decided, wouldn't it be nice if we could get away from the telephones long enough to sit down somewhere and discuss what we were doing in the manner in which we do it. I kind of resemble it to a retreat. We were going to take a retreat away from the office and take a broader view of our responsibility. And where do you go for a retreat? Well, it's a New Jersey agency. I thought we had to go to New Jersey. I didn't want to go to Asbury Park because it was too close and people would probably go home. But the place that's farthest away is Atlantic City. There's a good chance that I'd keep there for the whole weekend while we get over our jet. So in October of 1976, I went down to Atlantic City to plan for this retreat. I wanted to book the hotel. I wanted to make sure the facilities were capable of what I had in mind for my staff meeting. And I walked into the Chalfont Hatton Hotel, October 1976. And I walked in, the lobby was absolutely deserted. I went up to the registration desk, there was a bell there. I pushed the bell so somebody comes out of the back to talk. I discussed my problem with the person. It took about a half an hour before the salesperson in charge of these affairs came around. And we finally completed arrangements. And when the day of the meeting came, my staff came in. We were the only ones in the hotel. I went up to my room. It reminded me of the second act in an Oscar Wilde play, with plumbing to match. There was no restaurant in the hotel. I had a feeling for the weekend I was going to be like Alfred Dreyfus was on Devil's Island. Isolated, emaciated, suffering. That was in October of 1976. In May 30th of 1978, less than 2 years later, the same place had a cop at the door to keep people out. A line of people wanting to get in spread down the boardwalk and snaked around the back of the hotel. There were thousands of people clamoring to get in the same place because it was now called not South Manhattan, but Resource International. And of course, the advent of gambling has transformed Atlantic City into a sleepy, dying community into what it is today. I said that's a tale of two cities, and in effect there are two stories to tell. One is the story of the assets accruing to the community and the state as a result of gambling in Atlantic City, and the other is liabilities. Now, let me discuss each of them for a few minutes. The assets. There are 40,000 people employed full-time in the 12 operating casinos. Estimates have been that these 40,000 employees working full-time and gambling has generated another 65,000 ancillary jobs of people who service the communities and the community purchases. There has been a payroll of a staggering amount of money paid to the people working, and the average income for the people employed by the casinos has been significantly higher than anything before that existed in Atlantic City. In addition to that, over $1 billion, $1.2 billion, has been allocated to senior citizens for their utility bills, for their pharmaceutical bills, and a couple other programs, directly funded by an 8% tax on gross revenues of the casino. When you stop to add up the assets, significantly two very important things. Lots of jobs created, lots of money available for senior citizens who qualify. And in addition, the revitalization of a dying community. What about the liabilities? Well, the list is a little long. First off, the 12 casinos, there'll soon be 13, have earned gross revenues in 10 years of $2.5 billion. My mind staggers when I hear a million. To hear a billion, it's hard to comprehend $1 billion. $2.5 billion. The casinos have built a community which, in my judgment, reflects precisely 12 Taj Mahals in the midst of a war zone. If you walk one block from any casino off the boardwalk, you think you are exactly back in the Middle Ages or what it was 40 or 50 years. The spillover of the affluence of the casino stops at the door of the casino. Those people who used to live in Atlantic City, and I had a great aunt who lived in Atlantic City, if they live in Atlantic City now, are living in the middle of a parking lot because the whole town has been converted into casinos and parking lots. There are 32 million people who visit every year. 1,400 buses go down there every day. The gridlock of a Saturday night, August, in the casino makes New York City look like a freeway. And all in all, I can tell you the sum total of what casino gambling has brought to Atlantic City, aside from the two items of jobs and funds to seniors, can be characterized by the word sleaze. sleeves. And I tell you, as one who was involved in it for 5 years, and one who voted for the referendum establishing casinos, if I could return to the day when I cast that vote, I would change my mind. I would vote against it. Now, Atlantic City itself is 48 blocks long. There's no theater in Atlantic City. There's no supermarket. There's no retail business area. There's nothing resembling affordable housing for the people to live in. The Casino Act has in its preface the phrase, casinos will be a, quote, unique tool for urban redevelopment. There are no plans for intelligently redeveloping Atlantic City. When the Casino Control Commission imposed upon the casinos the obligation to contribute to the development of Atlantic City, and therefore have this given to their credit of the money they would have spent for it, Caesars on the boardwalk built a statue of Julius Caesar and says this would create urban redevelopment for Atlantic City. All in all, you have a situation there where the great promise has been fulfilled for a few and denied to many, many. Now, what disturbs me more than these facts is the role that the casino executives are now playing. They have become freedom fighters. Freedom fighters, not to the extent that they're demanding more democracy, but they're demanding for themselves the right to confuse latitude and longitude. And what they want to do is pick up geographically the strip from Las Vegas and transport it to the boardwalk in Atlantic City. They want to substitute the Nevada system of regulation for Atlantic City. And in the process they yell that they're being over-regulated, that the Casino Control Commission is too tough, that it interferes with the free operating, free enterprise system of business, and all of these things that in the Reagan area may have some validity for some people, but it is something that the casino executives are yelling all over. I'd like to tell you, I'd like to put that in its proper perspective. Because when a casino executive says the commission is spending millions of dollars for hundreds of employees and interfering with our business, I'd like to put that in the perspective of what they really mean. And the way to do that is to compare the system of regulation in Nevada with the system that we have in Atlantic City. They claim that there are too many employees for the New Jersey Casino Control Commission, and the implication is that it's a political patronage that uncles and cousins and brothers and sisters are getting jobs. Well, let me give you some statistics. In New Jersey, there are currently 12 casinos operating. The 13th will be opening shortly next year. For the 12 casinos, the New Jersey Casino Control Commission has 400 inspectors. Inspectors are on the floor of the casinos day and night, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Every time a machine is open, a table, a craps table, a blackjack table is open, and the money's taken out, in addition to the representative of the casino, there is an inspector there from the Casino Control Commission to see that when they add the money, it's added up correctly. Now, if you're a cynic, and I'm a cynic, it is entirely possible for them to buy off one guy and to fool around with their returns. It hasn't happened yet. It's improbable that will happen because of the rigid application of inspection that we put before we hire an inspector. And in any event, there has not been a breath of scandal about skimming, meaning taking money from the table and not reporting it, as you continually hear in us. But it's true that we have 400 inspectors. And you need 400 inspectors to cover that casino 24 hours a day, day and night. Sometimes there are as many as 4 or 5 on the site. Now, Nevada, they don't have 12 casinos. They have 2,000 licensees. Now, they range from the big casinos on the Strip, Caesars and Sands and all of the big ones, to the little mom-and-pop stores that have a couple of slot machines. But there are 2,000 licensees who operate gambling devices in Nevada. Not 12, 2,000. Does anybody want to guess how many inspectors Nevada has? We have 400 in New Jersey. Want to guess what they have?
2,000.
10.
300.
How many?
20.
400, 4,000. How's 91?
Yeah.
91 inspectors to inspect 2,000 licensees, and there are 300 licensees that are considered the major ones, major casinos. I once asked the young lady who was the head of the Nevada regulatory body, very nice lady, very smart. I'll tell you about her in another minute. I said, hey, her name is Patty. Hey, Patty, how do you regulate, how do you effectively monitor 2,000 licensees with only 91 inspectors? And her answer was a classic. She said, in Nevada, we regulate by faith. I would suggest that the people of New Jersey expect their Casino Control Commission to be a little less faithful. Okay. So when they talk about we are padding the payroll, that's not what they mean. What they mean is they want relaxed regulation for whatever reason they have in their mind. Okay. Number two. In Nevada, 84% of state revenues are derived from gambling. 84%. In New Jersey, we are on an expanding pattern of increased revenue derived from gambling. In 1970, it was 2.5%, primarily the racetracks. In 1981, it was 5.5%. And in 1986, I still don't have the figures for 87. 1986, New Jersey has received 7%, a little more than 7% of its total revenue from gambling. And there is this increased dependence upon gambling, which troubles me because, in my judgment, you finance the operation of the state by intelligent financing, not by sucker taxation. Now, if 84% of the revenue of Nevada is derived from gambling, what does that mean when it comes in terms of political control? I tell you right now, in Nevada, the gambling industry controls the state. They are permitted to, casino executives can run for public office and make contributions to candidates. They can do anything they want with regard to the operation of the state, and they, in fact, run the state. Now, another aspect of the so-called freedom fighters, of the casino executives, is to say we should not be barred from participating in the political process as the law currently provides. And I would urge you and anybody who would listen that the last thing in the world this state should do would be to relax that prohibition so that casino executives, A, could contribute money to a political candidate or be a candidate themselves. Because it's going to be a matter of time because they too will own the state of New Jersey. I would not be confused with the so-called, they got a perfect right as a citizen to run for public office. There are a lot of us have rights that we have to restrain in the interest of the public good, of the common weal, and to keep the casino industry clean, and to keep the state of New Jersey out of the hands of those who run gambling. I would urge them to continue that ban on the prohibition against political participation for casino activity. Now, one last difference between Nevada and New Jersey. In Nevada, the individuals who participate in regulation, like that young lady I talked about before, Patty, are free to go to work for a casino whenever they desire. So what happened with the case of Patty, with my friend, she was working as the chief regulator in Las Vegas on Friday afternoon. That night she quit, and Monday morning she went to work for a casino. Now I'm not saying that Patty did anything wrong, and I have no knowledge that she did anything wrong. But surely you can join with me in speculating about a scenario that indicate the possibility that something might have been a little bit resembling hanky-panky, or if it wasn't then, it certainly has the potential in the future. In New Jersey, I right now have been out of the commission for 2 years. If I wanted to go to work for a commission, for a casino, and if they would be so stupid as to invite me to join them, I still have to wait 2 years. I have a 4-year ban, a post-employment restriction before anybody plumbing commission could go to work in the casino, and it should be kept there. As a matter of fact, there is a little weakling in it, that I'm not a lawyer, and I have to wait 4 years, but if I were a lawyer, I'd only have to wait 2 years. I'd like to see that tightened up, but it really isn't that important. The point is, we must maintain that restriction against permitting the casino regulator to quit work today and go to work for a casino tomorrow. Now, just a few more points. In their campaign for freedom, the freedom fighters are saying we should have 24-hour gambling. Right now they're restricted to 22 and 20 hours. They should have a keno. They should have poker. As a matter of fact, they have no objection if the tracks have more racing games. Or if they bring in highlight. Anything to increase and expand the operation of gambling, which they think will help them. I would urge, again, strict maintenance of the current regulations to restrict access to gambling as much as possible. My judgment, we've gone too far already. Now, one last point. If you've been reading these articles in the New York Star Ledger, frankly, they've been boring me. If you've been reading them, I think the most significant fact that came out of the series so far is the admission by former Governor Byrne that the biggest mistake that was made was not creating a super agency to handle the problems of Atlantic City. Now, I'm fully aware, and in most instances, support the concept of home rule, that the people in the local area will determine what's best for them. But there are times that this noble concept has to be weighed in the interest of the overall better good. In Atlantic City, there's certainly a case without the The City Commission in Atlantic City is the triumph of mediocrity, if not venality. The collective IQs of the city commissioners, I hesitate to speculate. I suppose that many of you remember Jersey City under the days of Mayor Hay. I am the Lord Mayor Hay. I want you to know that compared to Atlantic City, Jersey City was a page out of Plato's Republic. That's how poor Atlantic City is. They fight, they have their own greed and venality to pursue. They have no interest or concern for the overall good. Each one has his own little axe to grind. As a result, the city is an absolute morass of inactivity. You can't drive from one end of the city without having your temper gnawed. There's no place to go. The entire town is in a terrible shape. The chief of police, well, I don't want to be accused of saying anything about libelous, so I won't tell you what I think about the chief of police. Anyhow, there really should have been a super agency to come in and take care of those problems. And the governor conceded, and I think he was right, that at the time we were considering the legislation establishing the casino, the people in any city were so eager to get it, they would have given anything to get that. And they certainly would have conceded to a super agency, whereas now they don't. Another point. You know, there were two referenda on casino gambling in Jersey City. The first one was defeated. It was defeated for, I think the main reason was it is not restricted just to Atlantic City. It wouldn't permitted casinos anywhere in the state. And I think they were right to turn it down for that reason. But there was another reason they probably turned it down, without even realizing it. And one of the bad effects of what exists in Atlantic City today. And that is the fact that the operation of the casinos is in the hands of the Las Vegas Buccaneers. Now let me be very specific about it. In Austria, the casinos operate in many, many cities throughout Austria. They are run spotlessly, immaculately clean. They are the height of efficiency. They are run by a privately owned corporation. But the privately owned corporation doesn't own the casinos. It is leased by the owner of the casinos. And who is the owner of the casinos? The government of Austria. And as a consequence, the major beneficiary of the operation of the casinos in Austria is not the casino operator, who operates it for a fee, but the major beneficiary of the people. And what I'm saying is here, the big mistake that was made was not having the state of New Jersey own the casinos and had them operated for the benefit of the people, not necessarily for the Las Vegas Buccaneers. Now, there may be some of you who say this is at variance with your concept of government, and that we shouldn't have more socialism, if you want to call the operation of the casino by government socialism. In any event, I would suggest that as far as New Jersey is concerned, the operation of the casinos in the hands of the Las Vegas Buccaneers is a major liability that can only be corrected visionary by the people of New Jersey. I doubt if you're going to get a chance to do it, but I know that I have been going all over the country, wherever they're considering the institution of gambling, such as Detroit, and recommending to them, if you're going to give them gambling, make sure you control the purse strings. Make sure that you own it, and thus have them operated for you. Now one last point, and then I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. There was a very lovely lady who served as the commissioner of the Department of Human Resources under Governor Burns County. Unfortunately, she has since passed on. But her name was Anne Klein. Anne Klein was a very intelligent, very vibrant, vital person. And she came up with an idea once that was absolutely staggering. She said, you know what the state of New Jersey should do? They should pass another referendum creating a casino arena area in the Meadowlands, 8 minutes from Times Square, and build a freestanding casino. That means not with the hotel. Freestanding casino, and have the state of New Jersey own and operate. Now that was pretty much in conformance with what I suggested a little earlier. And when the casino operators from Las Vegas heard about the possibility that there might be this competition created in New Jersey, 8 minutes from Times Square, they started to portray a situation that would leave you just crying with your tears. Yankee Stadium will close up. Theaters in Broadway will shut down. Every movie, nobody will go to New York, they go to Times Square, and they'll all come to the casino. And they painted such a story of travail that you could just literally cry about the sadness of it. In any event, I doubt very much where they're going to have an opportunity. All in all, the tale of two cities is, yeah, there's been some good. Hopefully, there can be a lot more good. As always, it'll be too little, too late. And I must also tell you in complete candor that the bureaucracy in the state of New Jersey has not contributed to the resolution of any of the problems. Because the most important thing on my mind when I was in Atlantic City, in addition to seeing that the casinos ran cleanly, they were maintaining integrity, the most important thing on my mind was to develop Atlantic City as a place for people to live. And I wanted to see housing. The Casino Control Commission was well on the way to launching a program using casino money to build housing. And I must tell you, devoid of any partisanship, just as a matter of fact, that the current incumbent governor, Governor Kane, denied the Casino Control Commission the opportunity to do that. He created a new level of bureaucracy by creating a new agency. It took the agency 2 years to get formed. When they got formed, they didn't know what to do. They had to raise the money. He set the ability to introduce new housing in Atlantic City for New Jersey back 3 to 4 years because of his inability to comprehend the situation. And I say that critically in a non-partisan fashion. It's not a partisan comment, but the governor himself has been responsible for the fact that Atlantic City has not developed new housing as quickly as it should. So, tale of two cities. The best of times, the worst of times. I can only hope that in the future we'll emphasize less the worst times and more the best times. Thank you.
I'm sure you have to agree. We learn more about Atlantic City from all the Star Ledger report. But now, questions?
I would like to know just how much they have fulfilled or what they've accomplished in their contributions to senior citizens.
That is the one point they can talk about. The Senior Citizen Fund has reached $1.2 billion. If you're a single person over 65 with an average annual income of $13,250, you're eligible for participation in the pharmaceutical program and utility program and a couple other line programs. If you're a couple, you have to have a combined aggregate income of under 16,250. And the over 65 will be disabled. If you're above those figures, you get that. But that money has been spent, and it has been spent to good purpose. And that is the one thing, aside from the jobs they offer, that is the one positive aspect that you can tell you. The current take is about $200 million every year. And it comes from an 8% take across the top. Every time you put $1 in the machine, 8 cents goes to the state. So that's good. And the casino operators say, the more we get, the more you get, which is also true. But at some point, there's a point of diminishing return where the extent of gambling starts to be down to the adversity state. In any event, I think 8% is a good figure. As long as we're going to have casino gambling, that is one thing that must be done. Yes, ma'am.
If there's so little housing, where do all these employees live?
Yeah, that's a good question. They have built some high-rise, high-income housing in the city on the boardwalks. There are two of these other Taj Mahals up there. Most of the people who live now live in some of the suburbs. And I really can't tell you what the demographics of it is. I don't think anybody made a study of it. But most of the people who, the high executives live, some of them live in Margate, which is a beautiful area. They got these palatial estates right on the ocean. Others go out of the way. There are some very fine condominium homes built. But the average worker, the low-income worker, lives in some of the sleazier towns nearby lakes. They have the usual problem that commuters have, getting caught in the traffic jam. Where do you park your car? Where do you have lunch? Where do you do all these things? It's not a very nice situation. It would be delightful if they could build affordable housing on the inlet. I don't know, you must know where Hackney is. You know where Hackney is? The most desirable area of anywhere is land immediately adjacent to water. And the ocean is a beautiful place. They stop polluting it. And they could build some housing there. They could build a community there for the absolute gorgeous. Matter of fact, one of the reasons I'm so bitter against Governor Kane is that the Casino Control Commission had plans. We had adopted plans based upon an agency that developed the Faneuil Hall in Boston and a couple other great places. They had developed a beautiful community on the inlet with affordable housing. We all set to go with it when the governor took the authority away from us and pulled it out to another level of bureaucracy. So that's what annoyed me, but that is what should be done with regard to housing. I want to point out that Donald Trump, when he stops writing books and buying yachts, says that Atlantic City should not have any housing. People should live elsewhere. Atlantic City just should forget.
What was the reasoning that Governor Kane used to block this housing?
The reason he gave was that the Casino Control Commission had too much to do as it was, and therefore he wanted other people to do it. I don't believe that has any validity, because the Casino Control Commission had ample staff. We had geared up. We were operating, all set to go. He took it away from us. It took them a good year and a half to form that commission. They had no money. They had no staff. They didn't know their job. I didn't even know that they had the motivation. Everybody on the commission, the 5 commissions, Democrat and Republican. By the way, there has never been one vote that reflected anything resembling politics. Whenever there was an apolitical commission, it was this commission, and to this day, even if I'm not, it's the same thing. So his argument had no validity for that judgment. It was maybe wanted to give a few more jobs to somebody else. Yes?
You quoted the statistic in your presentation that according to the government, the casinos, they supplied 40,000 people to work, but the actual population of the town is less than that. And half the population is not working. I don't understand this.
Well, first of all, they came in from Las Vegas with their own cadre to begin with. And that's
Yeah, but they got to
understandable.
put them up somewhere. They're not living in those hovels or whatever there is. I live down there. I know what's there.
I'm not sure of the import of your question.
I challenge the statement that you give, that there are 40,000 people working there. There are only, actual count of the town is only 35,000, of which half the people don't work.
So the fallacy of your question is that you're assuming that everybody works in the casino lives in Atlantic City. And I'm telling you, you can't live in Atlantic City because it's all parking lots now. They gotta live in
I agree with you. I agree. I've been there.
Joel, I remember you from the labor movement. Do you still have any feelings about what's happening in the labor movement?
135 pounds worth 24 hours a day.
Are you active?
The labor movement has a couple of problems to solve. One is that it chases you out when you're 65 years old. I have, however, pursued it because I'm now teaching at Rutgers in the labor program. I'm giving common courses about the labor movement. So I'm active to this extent. And of course, all of my friends who are still active are friends of mine. Yes?
I'm going to change the subject a bit, but I'd be interested in hearing your reaction to what I'm going to say. I myself have been in Las Vegas twice. I was there as a college student in 1931, and then I went there 50 years later to a medical convention and stayed there for a few days. I became aware in 1931, and I'm still aware of it in the 1980s, that I believe that Nevada, and you don't hear this or read about it much, is the only one of 50 states where prostitution is legal. This has an effect in Nevada, and I recommend many people who are in this room have been there, but if they haven't, if they want an experience, they should go to Las Vegas and look at the yellow pages of the
Study, not for practical application.
But as a point of information, the largest brothel is now selling shares, the stock on the stock. You can buy shares.
If you'll permit on the
Stock exchange. No, the stock exchange, but you can buy shares in it.
We don't have legal prostitution in New Jersey, but there are some prostitutes operating here. And they're not female.
Well, what would have happened to Atlantic City if gambling never came into effect? I mean, what about the housing? Would it have been in any better shape than it is today?
Yes. That's a good question. Let me ask you, we held at one point, we held a hearing and invited some of the old-timers from Atlantic City to come before us to tell us what the impact of gambling had been upon them. And I remember the president of the Atlantic City Chamber of Commerce came in and started to complain that the casinos had opened all these fancy stores, and that Atlantic Avenue, which was 2 blocks away, where some of the stores had existed, had been closing, and business was terrible. And after he went through this litany, you know, and again, I'm a very sentimental guy, I started to get sad and cry. I asked him a question, I said, you know, that's terrible, and I wish we could blunt the impact of casinos on what you're doing. But let me ask you a question. I asked the question to you. What would have happened if there had been no casinos on Atlantic? He said there'd be no stores at all. The potential for the development of Atlantic City, if you can set aside the sleeves, is there. My criticism is that they operated, they think exclusively of themselves and their bottom line, and nobody else. That's what.
Joel, what success have they had in keeping the mob out of Atlantic City?
Okay, that's a good question. And I hear that wherever I go because the cynicism that exists is understandable. Before a person can become a casino executive or a casino employee, he must fill out what they call a personal history disclosure that is literally, without exaggeration, this thick. They ask questions about your background, about your wife, about your wife's parents, about your parents and grandparents. They go into a personal history that is an absolute invasion of privacy. If I had to go through that, I would resent it and would not. And the fact that so many casino executives do indicates to me it's worth their while to do it. But there is an exhaustive survey made of everyone's background. And there have been hundreds, maybe thousands of individuals who have been denied licenses and evidence. So point one, entry for anybody with a record is very difficult. Does somebody sneak through the cracks? Possible. Possible. But they have a division of gaming enforcement, which is comprised primarily of representatives of the state police, who continually police the moral background of the individuals involved in the casino. By the way, one of the reasons I was so happy to leave the Casino Control Commission was that I did not like to sit in judgment of other people's moral opinions. I got enough trouble with my own. And I was tickled to get out of there because I found that one of the most distasteful, judging modes. But they do it. Makes you look good. They do it. Now, so I'm going to tell you, I do not believe that any casino mob influence at the present time. Now, there are something like 6,000 industries that supply the casino. I would not make that statement about them. On the other hand, while there is eternal vigilance over them, it is possible that there have been a few more that sneak through the grate in that area. But the other side of that coin is there is no one industry supplying the casino that has such a dominant role as to constitute a threat to the integrity of the industry. And we continue to find out when everybody does something wrong, they're thrown out. Now let me tell you, I voted against Hilton getting a license. You might ask me, why would you vote against a chain that is prominent and apparently is respectable as the Hilton? The reason I did, you will understand this, Hilton had a lawyer in Chicago by the name of Sidney Korshak. Sidney Korshak, I knew from my labor days, was the mouthpiece for the mob. And he was employed by Hilton Corporation to settle strikes. How does a mob lawyer settle strikes? Lots of ways. You could speculate what they do. Not the way they should be settled. Not by negotiation. And when Hilton came into Atlantic City for a license, they fired Sidney Korshak. And I said, this is an example of a corporation getting religion when they were pounding on the pearly gates of licensure. And I voted against it, but that's just a reason. So, the answer to your question is, Lou, at the top, they're clean. I'm very confident about that. Underneath, they're probably clean. And if they're not, then they're caught, they're thrown out. You can't say that about Las Vegas. Yeah.
What is the racial composition of the native population? How many are on welfare, and does that have any impact on these problems of getting housing?
Yeah, Atlantic City, I can't hear those things, I just don't know. It is a problem. It's a racially divided city, and part of the problem that exists in the city is just attributed to that fact. But it's not peculiar to Atlantic City. It's probably peculiar to every large city in the nation. We're having these revolutionary problems. I can give you some figures, though, that might help you in this respect. Of the 40,000 full-time employees, 46% are female, 38% are minorities. And that includes people that sweep the casino, and cook, and all the menial jobs that go to the top executive. For the 10,000 of the 40,000, one-fourth who earn over $25,000 a year, 31% are female, and 20% are minorities. Now that's just a figure with regard to the racial composition.
None of the workers of the native population living there.
You asked about the native population. Yeah. It's, I don't know. If I had to guess, I'd guess it's 50-50 right now. But there are so few people in the city, they don't really have a place to live. They tore down housing, they build casinos, they build parking lots. You go find yourself a place to live. You got a blanket, you live on the boardwalk. Yes, sir.
I understand if you walk one block away from the boardwalk, you're in a crime area. And what kind of a police force have they got there? The numbers and efficiency?
I'll give you an answer in one word: inadequate.
On a boardwalk, it's ridiculous. All the people around, you don't see a cop.
Yes, ma'am.
In view of, you say there are billions of dollars taken in by the casino, then how do you explain that there's only one casino that's paying their stockholders dividends?
How do you know about that?
I read it from Pinky Kravitz.
Pinky's a good friend of mine. I don't know if Pinky's right about that. I do know that the 12 casinos, 2 of them are having difficulty, financial difficulty. Let me tell you a very funny reason. The one that's having the greatest difficulty is the Atlantis Casino. It used to be the Playboy. Now, you know why they're having trouble? You're never going to believe it. They're having trouble layout. They got 3 floors. And there's something about a gambler, something in the innards of a gambler. They like to gamble in one big room with everybody watching. And the fact that you got to go to 3 different floors, deters gamblers from going to the casino. That's one of the To get back to your finances, most of them, 10 of the 12 are operating in the black very handsomely. Why they don't pay dividends is something that the board of directors have to explain. I don't know. they're talking about reinvesting the money. There's a lot of building going on, but the return on their investment is significantly good. They're crying all the way through.
Sergey, do the racketeers, the mafia, have people who pass all the tests and still be Sergeys of the mafia?
No, we have caught and expelled any number of people who were allegedly claimed to have these wild times. By and large, that's not possible. Whatever did happen, as far as I know, they were caught and thrown. There is a more respectable way to do what you're hinting at them. And, my father wanted me to be a lawyer, and I suppose I should have been a lawyer. I'm a man at work, but I'm not a lawyer. But one of the ways you can do it is through your representation, your legal representation. A casino executive is prohibited from making a contribution to the candidate. His lawyer is not. And I kind of suspect on occasion some of those contributions have the fingerprints of the casino.
What kind of education system do you have? So there aren't many people that say, well, that people are children and they have a adequate system for
These things, I've been out there for 2 years now, and I really don't know how it's done. I do know that the high school is 2 blocks from the casino, and there is a perennial problem of prohibiting high school kids from going to the casinos and gambling. And you must have read about the case about the young girl.
right.
She prettied herself up, you know, and she looked a little older. They let her gamble. They gave her credit. Yes, sir.
Mr. Jacobson, I've been curious about Asbury Park, which is also getting to be all schemes. Now some late developers came in and they've done a gorgeous job with the Berkeley car already. Are they anticipating gambling? Who might they attract it? It's very expensive, very gorgeous.
I conduct their market survey, so I don't know. But if they're anticipating gambling, they're optimistic beyond description. They will not be late.
Because they're beginning to build up Asbury Park again.
The areas that are most likely are either Detroit, which has turned it down for the 3rd time now, Poconos, which is close, or Miami Beach, and they turned it down several times too. I think one of the reasons they turn it down, because they might get a chance to speak, they can learn that tell them don't do it. Poconos had a proposal just for slot machines. Well, I can envision a scenario where I would not object to it, because in Puerto Rico, the slot machine, the income from the slot machine is used exclusively for education, exclusively. The state owns them. So the casinos get a certain percentage of the swing of the machine, but most of the money goes for educational purposes. If they did that in Poconos, I would have no objection. But it's still sucker taxation.
So I'd like to ask you, are there figures about Gamblers Anonymous? What has the gambling in Atlantic City done to the population? Would they have been gamblers, in other words, by going elsewhere, or did this create a gambler?
Casinos do not create gamblers, but it enhances their opportunity to gamble. That's what compounded the problem. I happen to be on the board of directors for the New Jersey Council on Compulsive Gambling for just that reason. And the big struggle there is to get sufficient funds to administer the work, to create clinics to help the compulsive gamblers, such as Alcoholics Anonymous, and on the cases to help the rehabilitation of the individual. I want you to know that my friend Donald Trump came to my testimonial dinner, so it's got to be worth it. He didn't come to see me, he came to see the other commissioners who were going to stay on. We spent $30 million to buy a yacht for some Arab sheikh who spent $1.5 million to dredge the channel so he could bring the boat next to his hotel where he wants to park it. Who spent $11,000 in fine because he was dredging it illegally. The man who is net worth of $3 billion. 30, 40 years old, 35 years old. He's also very generous when it comes to gamblers and gambling. He contributed twice to the New Jersey Council on Compulsive Gambling, $100 each time.
I remember a life experience with a gorgeous, exciting place. What turned it around?
Well, over the
The
years,
airplane.
over the years, the Queen got tarnished. The Queen of the Boardwalk got tarnished. I used to go to conventions there. I stayed at the hotel, at the Traymore Hotel once for a convention. I was on the 13th floor, and I got up in the morning, I went to the bathroom, I saw an ant in the bedroom. I said, you realize how many years ago did that ant start?
They still have conventions there, like the NEA and how many years?
They have, most of the hotels have
Education
conventions.
Association, JEA.
If you read today's ledger, we're talking about extending the convention hall next to where they're going to have a railroad station, next to where they're going to have an airport. And little by little, all these things will be done. The major point is the spillover is very little for good purpose. All of it is designed to bring in the camera to the same hot